and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever London Real Estate Podcast. My name is Rick Pinheiro, also known as Real Estate Rick, and I am here with Mr. Kris Romnes. Welcome,
hey, Rick.
Kris.
Thanks.
Kris is a superstar agent at my office, and together we're going to do this little podcast for Londoners and people who want to invest in real estate in London. Basically, this is just a very natural way of Kris and I discussing some of the issues out there in the real estate market. We like to get together sometimes, have lunch, and
talk shop.
Talk shop, exactly, right? And we also like friendly competition, and we like to share ideas and share clients and all of that kind of stuff. So we want to put that out to the public and see if that's some value to them and provide some sort of information that maybe help them make decisions for them when it comes to real estate.
Absolutely,
so, that's the quick summary of the London Real Estate Podcast and what it is. This first episode is going to be very simple. We're going to look at some basic stats for the London and St. Thomas real estate market. We're going to talk a little bit about how we think things are right now, currently in the market, and a little bit about the prediction that we have for the future and some of the other things that we're hearing out on the ground floor from other realtors and other professionals in the area.
And everyone has different opinions here. Keep in mind, this is our opinion, and we'll tell you what we think.
We spoke about that with the stats. Is there's a lot of realtors out there that I respect and I listen to and so on, but there's a variety of different numbers and stats that I hear. So I want to make sure that we're accurate in what we're saying, and so that's why we decided to go online and pull up from the London St. Thomas Real Estate Board the actual stats that they provided.
And these are from the Canadian Real Estate Association.
Correct.
As well, so they're...
And we're going to provide...
Public knowledge.
We're going to provide the link below so that you can view these documents and look at them as we're discussing some of them as well. So one of the things we were talking about is just the average price. Obviously, something happened in London in 2016. Let's talk about that for a second, the premise of that. What do you think happened in 2016? Why did we all of a sudden, the market in London change drastically?
I feel London, well, it obviously started to catch up with other cities, and mainly other cities east of London, the closer you get to GTA. And people realized London was a great town to live in, great town to invest in. And part of the reason the price went up too, people felt they didn't want to miss out on that. So that's why we've seen a substantial price increase over the last 3 years. Yeah.
And I think it was also a mix of Londoners hungry to find houses and young people trying to get into the market, baby boomers looking to sell their houses for the first time, and now this opportunity to sell it at a higher price is there.
Yeah.
So I like to say that there's 8-10 things that caused all of this to happen.
Yeah, not just one thing. Yeah.
And we're definitely on the map now. I think all of Canada and even parts of the rest of the world know where London, Ontario is, and definitely Ontarians have realized there was value there, and
wish they had seen it before. I'm sure a lot of people
would have
kicked themselves for that now.
Absolutely.
But I mean, everyone has a hindsight real estate story. So
I'm hearing small talks too about even people coming back from Alberta, where the job situation is not like it was there.
Sure.
The jobs are now in Ontario, and we're seeing those people come back as well. Unfortunately, they're coming back and there's not that many houses available.
Right.
Let's talk about that stat.
Here we go.
Something else, so that's why Kris was prepared for that. But
so this is January 2019, everyone. So active listings in London in 2016 in January, there was 1,200 active listings. January 2019 2019, there was 612 active listings. So there was
50%.
50% less listings January this year
January.
compared to January 3 years ago, which is, I mean, that's a huge difference, and that's that goes to our inventory problem here in London. That the inventory is just so low, which creates more demand for these buyers trying to get into the market here in London.
Yeah, and if you look at the 5 years prior to 2016, it was about 1,500 listings on average.
It was a lot closer 5-6 years prior. 1,300, 1,500, 1,600. So relatively close over those last 6 years prior to 2016. And then when everything changed in London here in the spring, more or less of 2017, the inventory dropped substantially. Yeah.
And that's definitely going to be a big point that we're constantly bringing up when we're talking about the future, where the market is today, and how the rest of the year is going to go. Inventory is the big thing that everybody's talking about. Mm-hmm. We are super low in inventory, and if anybody's out there looking for properties, then you know exactly what we mean. Because and when the good ones do come up, they go
sell
quickly.
Fast. Yeah.
Right?
They sell fast. Yeah.
Which that's where you get the bidding wars and everybody fighting and people coming from all different places to come to the same little town to buy real estate. You get price increases.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those price increases that we're looking at here over the last couple of years. So since 2016, like you were referring to there.
So up until 2016, the average price in London, for a few years prior to that, it hovered around 260, 275. And that was a pretty consistent average price here in London for a lot of years. Over the last couple years, again, that's changed drastically, whereas in London now, we're sitting at an average price of $387,000. So compared to January 2016, a 39% increase in for the average price here in London, which is huge, yeah.
And we haven't seen a price increase like that in,
ever
50 years
ever,
or more,
yeah.
right? Like
yeah.
so. That's definitely huge, and it's making it even harder to buy real estate because you got to pay more for what you would consider less if you were a Londoner and saw the properties that were available back in 2015.
Definitely, yeah.
How does that affect us now then? So going into 2019, what do we need to be concerned about? What do we got to predict here that we're going to see?
I predict still an inventory issue. When spring rolls around every year, we typically do get a bit more inventory. Are we going to see a little more this year in the spring? Hopefully we do. But I feel low inventory is going to remain an issue for the next year or two in the foreseeable future here in London. If markets change or drop in other cities, here in London, I think we still need to remember that our price is still considerably lower than other cities east of here. So,
right,
yeah.
One thing that we heard at the board when we went to a meeting there, a CREA meeting, interest rates are going to play a big factor as well. We've seen small increases. We thought it was going to go up, but recently it went kind of back down a little bit. The Royal Bank, I'm not sure if the rest of the banks followed after that or not. Mm-hmm. I think that will also play a factor. Like they said, if the rates do go up, how will the public react to that and so on?
Yep.
Does that force a lot of people to put their houses up for sale and so on? Similar to what happened maybe in the States there.
Mm-hmm. I don't think, even a 5% interest rate, which is higher than a lot of people around here are used to, but historically, that 5% interest rate is still quite low. So, excuse me. So is that going to change a lot if the rate goes up a bit. I don't see, flood of houses coming on the market if rates go up to 5%. I don't see that.
And if we remember, the mortgage rules changed over the last few years as well, which means that you had to be approved for a higher rate.
Stress test.
A stress test. Yeah. And so we should be more prepared for an increase of the rates and not hit us like it did in the United States.
Sure, yeah.
So, another big factor here that I want to talk about is also the properties themselves. Because, for example, condos. What we saw is now, condo sales in that first year, I think it was 2016, they had shot up like 80% because we weren't really buying condos as much until this all happened, and now condos have become like a regular home.
Sure.
Semi-detached homes, I remember thinking, wow, in Toronto, these semi-detached for, millions of dollars, we never see that in London.
The norm.
Now it's become norm for it to be, semi-detached as a home, and it can be of different values.
And these are now entry-level properties for a lot of people, semi-detached homes. If you can't afford or get into the market for a single-family home priced above $300 or $350, then you're going to look to the semi-detached market or maybe a cheaper condo to get into the market, which is a great idea. There's nothing wrong with semi-detached homes.
No,
condos,
for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess that sets up the big question that, we're saying there's not enough inventory. We're saying that the prices are so high and that there's all this competition. Is there a way for somebody to enter the market if they, first-time home buyers right now?
I think a first-time home buyer with a limited budget just has to keep an open mind and realize that the first house they're going to buy is not necessarily, their dream home or the house they really want. They maybe have, be prepared to do some work to the house. It's not going to be in great condition if you're buying it for $260,000 or $270,000. Keep an open mind, be willing to do a little bit of work, and just remember, this is a stepping stone. So, in the future you can sell that house with equity that you've gained in the house for value, and then you can get your dream home down the road. But keep an open mind. And don't be too picky. There's very little out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as a society, we end up adapting. Sure, yeah. This is not the first time in life that there's been a massive change that we have to adapt to. We go back to times like my grandfather. I think he bought his first house for $10,000 and his second one for $40,000. So at that point, I'm sure the idea of buying a house for $100,000 seemed absolutely crazy.
And to him, $10,000 at the time would have been
absolutely
astronomical. He would have,
absolutely
thought to himself, "What am I doing or getting myself into?"
It's all relative, and we'll have to adapt. So there are properties out there. There are cheaper condos. There, and like you said, you just have to be open-minded. Because. If you were shopping 5 years ago, you had a much larger pick, and so you could get a much larger home with a larger property and not pay that much as long as you chose an affordable neighborhood.
Right.
But now, unfortunately, even the affordable neighborhoods are starting to sneak up to,
and they're
250 and 300.
And they're becoming unaffordable, right?
Absolutely.
For a lot of first-time buyers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another little tip to affording a place is additional income. And we talk a lot about rental properties. I know you got some rental properties. Let's talk about granny suites, additional apartments. First of all, it's income. Absolutely. It's great to make some extra income if you can rent out your basement or you're buying a duplex or so. But what people don't realize, especially as of recent, is some of the new laws that have allowed you to build a secondary unit on your property. Tell us about that, because it's huge news, and I think in this type of environment, in this type of market, it's great advice to help people make extra money on these expensive properties.
So 2 years ago, more or less, might have been a little less, the City of London passed a bylaw allowing any single-family home, semi-detached dwelling, or condo, and this is subject to regulation too, guys, you're allowed an accessory dwelling unit within your single-family residence. So if you live in a ranch in East London, you can legally convert your basement to a single unit dwelling. Again, subject to regulation. There's still some fire codes that need to be met and building codes, but the property does not need to be zoned two-family dwelling anymore, is what was the hurdle in the past. So there's some fine print there. It's on the city website under general provisions. If you're interested in that, I encourage you to look at that. But again, a game changer for someone who does want to make a little bit of income renting out their basement, or build an accessory dwelling unit on your property if you feel that mortgage payment's a bit too much than you can afford. So
Absolutely. Since we're on the topic, and I know you're just getting some brand new experience at this, but I'm sure everybody wants to hear some of the stories of how it's going so far. Airbnb. You changed a couple of your rentals into Airbnb.
My wife and I converted one of our duplexes to 2 Airbnb units, and it's gone well. My wife is the quarterback for this, and she's in charge of this. It's gone great for 3 months. It's definitely more hands-on. Some people would argue me that, as opposed to renting to a long-term tenant. A great source of revenue if you have a nice place and you can get high occupancy consistently. So I mean, that's another income stream too, Rick, if someone wants to go that route. Yeah.
Was it a lot of work to convert them from normal rentals into Airbnb?
I found more of the work was in furnishing and equipping the unit, because there was a lot more money, cash put out to equip these units. They need to have everything short of food, these units. So fully equipped kitchens and bathrooms and linens and toiletries. I mean, more than a hotel room would have. So in that respect, I felt it was more work getting it ready to go and equipped. But the renovation side of things, I mean, you still need to have a nice place, in my opinion, even if you're going to rent it out to a long-term tenant. So that was no different in that respect.
I presume the fear people will have is, now I get this place ready, I spend some extra money on the furnishings and toiletries and so on, and is it going to get trashed? Is it going to get trashed by the renters?
Yeah, and that's people's fears, even in owning an income property with long-term tenants. So I would say to them, if you don't want an income property with long-term tenants, Airbnb can be a bit better, because you do have more control over who comes and goes in your units. There's criteria you can set. And it's short term too, so if someone isn't great and they're there for a week, I mean, they're gone. It's not like a long-term tenant who, I mean, you're stuck with if things, shit hits the fan, right? So
absolutely. And also you have less time to destroy the property.
Yeah.
Like if you're there 5 years, is a lot different than 5 days.
Yep. Yeah.
What's the minimum you rent them out to?
Ours is a minimum 2-night stay, and again, this is criteria you can set within the app. Some people will allow you to book today and show up in 2 hours. I find, or we've found, and friends of ours have found, having a 2-night minimum will weed out people wanting to just come and party, or weed out some of the riffraff. If they've committed to a 2-night stay, then I think you're going to have better luck with people like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for the extra tips on Airbnb.
Hey, there'll be more to come.
That was bonus. That was a little bonus for this first London Real Estate Podcast. Just want to thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to wrap it up here for today. We're going to hopefully do some more of these in the future. Please let us know what you thought in the comments, and make sure you subscribe and like and do whatever that you need to do to make sure that you're listening to the next London Real Estate Podcast. I am Rick Pinheiro. This is Kris Romnes, and we're out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye.